Georgia O'Keeffe is one of my favorite artists. She became very famous for painting flower pictures, but these were not your ordinary flower pictures. Flower pictures and drawing subjects that were decorative, like flowers and butterflies, were often things that were considered to be a lesser type of art, the type of art that women who painted china or little delicate cups might paint, not considered fine art or famous art in the art world. She had one-woman art shows and became very famous, and this is the kind of artwork that she did. She painted very large close-up flowers. This is one of my favorite Georgia O'Keeffe flower books here, and you can see that the type of flowers she painted really made the flower look very abstract. And here I'll show you some examples of her flowers. You can see they're close up, they take the whole canvas, they're right up in the face of the flower. You usually don't see the stem and the leaves, and so it takes on an abstract look to it. They're not necessarily flowers with stems and vases. You can see they're very, very much flattened, blended color, and they're the type of thing that fit very much into the abstract art of the time. Again, if you look at this, you may not even think it was a flower at all. It seems to be so close up, it's hard to really figure out what you're looking at. Same way with this one. This is one of her very famous ones. This is an iris. If you don't know your flowers, you might not figure out that this is an iris, but you can see she's so close up in the middle of the iris that it really blends into a series of abstract shapes. Plus, she doesn't use every color. She uses a variety of very subtle shades put together, and it's like layers of colors together. So that also adds to the abstractness of her painting, of her work. Here's another example of, you can see this is Johnny Jump Up or Jack in the Pulpit. And again, if you didn't know your flowers, you might just think it was a series of abstract shapes. It doesn't really look like it relates to any particular type of flower. And again, that's the kind of thing that made her extremely famous. Again, very abstract, very flattened design, very much influenced by Asian art, great color. And you can see how there's lots of different colors in here, but they all blend together in subtle shades. They're in a very much a restricted, what we call a restricted palette. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Georgia O'Keeffe's picture. It's going to be a little hard to figure out. Here's a wonderful one too. This is again, this is a calla lily, beautiful picture, but it's a little tricky to find one that's going to work for us because we have to use white paper. This also works better if we were using paint or pastel because it's easier to blend, but we're going to use crayon, and we're going to blend it together really well. We're going to work on layering of crayon. So we're going to pick this painting out here. This is called the Red Poppy. We're going to use this one as an example. You can see here's my finished one, and you can see how I used the Red Poppy as inspiration for my picture. Now, when you look at this, you have to think of this more as a shape and less than a flower, because that's what she was doing with her flowers. She was trying to create a series. She was using the flower and making it very abstract in how she put her paintings together. She didn't just have a little picture of a flower and a stem. You're right up in the middle of the flower. In fact, the flower often just comes off the page. You don't even get the whole flower. You just sort of get parts and shapes of the flower. So we're going to use this one here. You can see that the poppy, in terms of your colors, a lot's going to depend on what kind of crayons you have. I happen to have a lot of crayons, And so, you know, something like this, a 64 pack of crayons, would be really good. There's a lot you can pick out of here. But if you only have, you know, a small pack of crayons, you're just going to have to make sure you layer your crayons on top of each other to really get the look that you want. When you originally look at this picture, it originally looks to be black and red, but that's not really what it is. If you look at it very closely, the middle here is black, but it also has a purple, and it's a purple that's so dark that it looks black because it's layered together. Same way as with the flower. It predominantly looks red, and then it looks orange, and then it looks like it has some yellow. Well, again, yes, those are all the colors that make up orange. Red and yellow make orange, so they're all put together, and some areas around the reds here are so dark that it almost looks like there's a little yellow on top, or yellow gold on top, or brown. I colored on mine the background here. It's sort of pinky on the side here, and then it's got almost the seafoam green from the middle around the edge. I didn't want to leave the white space. I just thought that it would look better because the seafoam sort of blends into blue. I wanted to do the blue at the end. So I'm going to try to show you how to do this picture, what the main concepts were. If you want to use the red poppy, that's fine. So I would strongly suggest that you look up your George O'Keeffe and find your picture that inspires you for your George O'Keeffe drawing. Okay, I've got my red poppy over here, my book. Now, what I did was I started with a white piece of computer paper, okay, and a pencil. And what I did was I thought about how the flower is on the paper. And in my picture here, in the book, you can see that there's very little background, that the flower pretty much takes up, comes to the edge here, comes to the edge here, and really I just have a tiny corner here of background. This is the largest corner, smaller, and then tiny on the side. So really my flower is going to go off the paper. Then my center here on my paper is the middle of the flower. And very often when we draw flowers, that's like the smallest part, and then we, you know, do the flower around it. But this, she's made the central part, the middle of the flower. So that's going to take up definitely, you know, I would say on your regular computer paper, maybe the size of your fist, that whole thing, and then the leaves around. So it's very much flattened to an abstract design. So I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to take my paper, okay, and basically I'm looking at shapes. So I have an oval, that's the middle here, in the middle. It has a shape that is rounded with 3 dips in it, and then some other 3 ovals here, okay. And then it has 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 abstract shapes that sort of look like leaves that come off the center, pretty equal spaced. And again, just think of this more as shapes and less as a flower. Just try your best to kind of get the shapes looking similar to the way she drew them. And less, think less flower. And then she came out with some lines between each one. And then again, I would go around the outside. Okay, and And basically you have your rough outline of the flower here. You can see, rough outline of the flower, that's really what you want to come up with your painting. Now, what's going to make this work is you're not really going to be able to just simply color it in. You're going to have to color it in layers, and you're going to have to color it in with a series of different colors and then layer on top. I started out by taking a gray because I didn't want to go right in with the black for the middle, because black is so dark you really can't build up from black. So you want to start with a color that's a little bit less intense so that you can color over it. And what that'll do is it'll give you a little undertone. So I'm taking the gray, and everything that's black I'm just going to outline with the gray. Now I know full well that later on I might be going over this with the black, but this helps me give my layers together. For my other part of my flower is my other flower are reds, oranges. I'm going to have yellow because yellow and red make orange. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find a red. This actually says scarlet, or this one says orange red. Some sort of, I think these are pretty identical. A red orange is what I'm going to use for my outlining. And then that way I can definitely see the parts of my flower, and then I'll know what I'm working with here. So I'm going to take this very intense red orange, and I'm going to do all my outlining on my pencil lines with this. And I'm going to press really, really hard and try to get a good outline on this. This is where it gets a little tricky. I know I'm going to use red orange. I know I'm going to use red. I know I'm going to use black, mainly dark, almost black, maroon, and purple, because that'll be for the center. I know that there's a tiny little bit of a seafoam green here in the center, so I'm going to have that. I know I'm going to need shades of yellow, just regular straight up yellow, a yellow gold if you have it, any number of lights and dark oranges, and I'm going to have these to all work with when I'm doing my flower. Now for the center part here, get that in there right away because that's a light color. The whole thing is seafoam, and then it fades to black on the edge, so you can then go over it with the black around the edges. Here, if you look at the painting, it looks like it's so dark purple that it's black. So again, add your purple, then do a little black on top. And then you can see that the pieces in the center come out 3D, like they're little little hairs that come out. So what I like to do is I'm going to go over like this. That's really what this picture is going to be about. It's not just going to be, you know, randomly coloring things in really simple. You're really going to have to go layer on top different colors. So again, I keep working that until it looks the way I want it to look. Now, let's go on to how I did the petals. I wanted to go with a good underlayer first. So I took a lighter orange and I colored them in. And then I went with a darker color or a darker red. I don't want you to use one color. I want you to see if you can really blend your colors in. If you look very carefully at her picture, there's some areas that are really dark. There's some that blend dark to light. And sometimes I think you can just brighten things up by just going over it. You don't think you actually see the yellow, but it has to be there, and otherwise, for it to otherwise not have that sort of glow to it. Now for this part here that's black, again, like the middle, I didn't start with black, I started with gray. Because I thought, you know what, if I start with gray, I can build it up to black. Okay, now I can get the black outline here. Okay, you see how that looks? I just didn't go in with one color. I really started to build it up. And you can see, once I start doing that all the way around, I start getting a great variety of colors. Putting in the darks and lights and darks and lights. And I really can get some terrific, terrific looks, and I can keep going back over it and keep going back so that you've got this depth, this lights and darks. So what I want you to do is I want you to find a Georgia O'Keeffe flower. If you want to go with the red poppy, this is the one that I did here. Look at it very carefully, find out what colors they use in the picture, and then think about the colors that make that color. So here, if this is a poppy and there's lots of orange, you're going to be using all different shades of orange, plus reds, plus yellows, and I want you to blend them together. Look very carefully at your darks. If you think it's black, look very carefully, and chances are, like in this one, there's black and purple together, and that's a purple that's so dark, it's pressed so darkly in the picture that it sort of blends to black. So I hope you enjoy your lesson on Georgia O'Keeffe, and I hope you learn a lot about crayon blending. Okay, bye. Enjoy.